Hello, Internet. Mike and Andy here with a new episode of the Vox podcast. I want to remind you why we call it Vox. Besides the fact that it's a cool Latin word, it means voice. And I'm of the conclusion that God's voice through Jesus is most clearly on display. And I think that, at least in my journey, it's easy to lose Jesus right in the middle of Christianity. It's easy to lose Jesus right in the midst of the Bible. It's easy to lose Jesus right in the middle of the religion that supposedly bears his name. And particularly as we talk about cultural issues and how Jesus may or may not respond, to me, immersing ourselves in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, the four Gospels that kind of bear his voice, I think is more important than ever. So Vox is Latin for voice, and we feel like God has spoken, and we're just adding our 2 cents and in a very small little level about what he has said. Mighty Ducks, what's going on?
We're on the down.
Yeah, okay, shocking. All right, enough about that. I think our sweet podcast audience got enough of your Mighty Ducks playing that horrible song last episode. That was ridiculous. But I've got we've got a friend coming in named Bonnie. Bonnie's on her way in. And we're going to talk about something other than sexuality today, which, holy cow, shocking.
There's other things in the world to talk about.
There is. Unbelievable. So we're going to talk about grief and loss and lament and why the Christian community is so uncomfortable with those sorts of things. And Bonnie, we're going to hear a bit from her and her story, and we're waiting on her. But per usual, we have some pretty tough cultural topics to discuss before she gets here. Before, usually this part of the podcast, last time it was how early can you put up a Christmas tree, and we were all clearly assured of Andy's wrongness on almost every point in that conversation. Today, Andy, I've got a question for you.
Okay.
Is it a sin to pull my kids out of school to declare them sick in order to go see Star Wars? Now, I'm gonna go with no on this, and I'm gonna use as a biblical example the Hebrew midwives that hid the babies from Pharaoh. Pharaoh was murdering the first kids. They're the firstborn of the Hebrew slaves, and the Hebrew handmaidens would lie to Pharaoh. Therefore, just with airtight logic, I now argue that it's justified to me to lie to the school district to go see Star Wars at 10 a.m. On a Friday when they have school. What say you? How old are your kids, first of all?
I say... I'm sorry.
How old are your kids?
My kids are a little over 2.5 and 11 months.
Okay, so this is not a pressing issue.
Okay, so here's my my response to that.
Oh boy.
I believe that your decision to do this is the most spiritually enriching thing that you could do here. Very much in which the same way that the showbread was stolen.
Yes,
for the sake of
there's all kind of biblical
for the sake of the enrichment in need, and so for you to say I need to spend time with them and take them to Star Wars because the public school system simply is not going to give them that enriching of an experience.
No, they're not. In fact,
so I will completely validate that idea and not say it's not sin.
Andy, I'm shocked that you would validate something I've said. People are complaining that you agree with me too much, which, frankly, I love. Personally, I want to be around people who just agree with me all the time, because I didn't marry one of those, and I didn't have those for children, and I don't have any of those for regular conversation partners. So Andy's here to just agree, except on the Christmas tree, Adele, and Mighty Ducks issues.
Yeah, and my weekend in Solvang definitely proved me wrong, as they have a store dedicated to celebrating Christmas all year round. So you are not the only one in this mindset.
When I moved from Ohio, out to California, the names of places here are like, I thought it was La Jolla, not La Jolla, right? Down near San Diego, La Jolla, that's what it's called right there. It's Jolla, La Jolla. Nope. Solvang. What in the world?
It's Danish.
Ugh.
So it's a Danish town. So it was founded by the Danes in like 1930 something.
Okay.
Based on some history I read on it.
So we're going to get no sparks of conversation from my Star Wars thing because the way I figured, that was the first movie I saw. 1976, or 77, I was 6 years old. I remember going with my dad to my first movie theater was Star Wars. First movie theater experience. And I know you don't know what that's like, Andy. When were you born?
82.
Yeah, you missed out on a lot.
I think I missed seeing Star Wars. I think I saw the first Star Wars movie I saw in the theater. Well, no, I did actually see when they did like a THX release kind of in the 90s, they did do all theater playbacks of the 4 through 6. So I did see those in the theater, but not
No, I was there. I was part of the original.
Yeah.
I mean, I mailed away for Star Wars figures, and I got, and had I known they'd be worth billions of dollars now, holy cow, I would have saved them. But I had the original Star Wars figures. You had to mail. I got them in the mail, and for our listeners under 30, the mail, it's this apparatus where pieces of paper and packages are delivered to you personally, but it's neither here nor there.
It's archaic.
It is archaic, doggone. So nothing there. Christmas is coming. Erres are getting ready, and we're gonna decorate. The Christmas decorations are out. They're partially up, but because of your pressure against Christmas before Thanksgiving, they're not fully up, but they will be up by the end of this week. They will be up. I'm making that commitment now. Again, the Vox podcast, fighting the significant cultural issues of our day. It is okay.
It is on.
To lie to your school, to take the kids to Star Wars. End of story. All right, Andy's got to go. We're going to wait for Bonnie. We're going to play some good bridge music here for you. Andy, what are we going to play, do you think?
I don't know.
Okay.
I'll put
just
in there
as long
something.
as it's not the Mighty Ducks thing, which was awful.
No.
So you have to get licenses to play stuff on podcasts?
Yeah.
Is that what it is? So Pearl Jam is it?
No, we can't use Pearl Jam. I haven't written to them. No, I'll draft a letter.
All right.
I'll draft a letter.
All right. So who knows what this next music will be? But we're gonna say goodbye for now. Bonnie will join us. Andy has to go. He has a real job, and so he actually can't sit around and just talk into a microphone all day. Shockingly.
Shocking.
So we'll be back in just a moment. Thanks. All right, we're back with Bonnie.
Hello.
Bonnie Lewis. Bonnie, you have to say hello, Internet.
Hello, Internet.
So this is my friend Bonnie. Bonnie, tell us, give us 2 minutes on who you are. We've been friends for a while. How old are you?
I'm 31.
31.
I can't believe you just
you're
made
married.
Me say
is that why? That's a good. Is that? I thought it was weight you weren't supposed to ask. In
That's
which
fine
case,
too.
Bonnie's like, I don't know. I'm gonna guess maybe 105 pounds. Okay. So we won't ask for clarification on that.
Great.
And you're married?
Married with a little boy named Chip.
Right.
We've been married almost 8 years. And let's see, seminary trained.
Where?
Fuller
In?
Seminary.
In
Pasadena, just at MAT. But then I specialized in spiritual formation.
Matt is not a technical title. Master of Arts in Theology is what MAT stands for, to be clear.
Yep, and then specialized in spiritual formation.
Yep.
And we worked together at Rock Harbor and also at EV Free.
We did.
Bonnie
is one of the most gifted teachers I've ever been around. We it was so fun. When I was at a church called Rock Harbor in Costa Mesa, we had this class where we talked about teaching the Bible and what's that mean and what's that look like. And we invited people to send submissions in of their own teaching just to receive feedback or whatever. And by far and away, the best submission we got was from a 19-year-old young lady named Bonnie. And so she and I have been friends ever since. But I wanted to bring Bonnie on. We're going to take a break, as I said before, from talking about sexuality. I want to talk about grief and loss and lament. Obviously, over the weekend, I watched in horror, in real time on my Twitter feed about what was happening in Paris. The school shooting after school shooting happening in the States. I mean, it's so commonplace now.
I know.
And I've always felt that the church hasn't done a very good job equipping me or people in how to lament and grieve and process this sort of thing. So I wanted Bonnie to come and share a bit of her story. Unfortunately, Bonnie has experienced more than her share of 31 years of hardship. And so, Bonnie, whatever you want to share with us, would love to hear it. But tell us just a little bit about what brought you to Jesus initially, and then what led you to seminary, and then what have been some of the bumps along the way.
Yeah. I grew up in a Christian home. I feel like I've been, for lack of a better phrase, a Christian for a large part of my life. But when I went to high school and college, it sort of cemented, as it usually does as we get older. And I just decided I wanted to know more. So I went to Chapman University for my undergrad.
Go Pirates.
Or Panthers.
Panthers.
And
Go Panthers.
Go Panthers. And I don't even know. I think we had a football team.
Okay.
But you and I disagree on this.
What?
I don't even follow football. So we could have had the best football team.
Wow.
Today someone said, go Pats. I said, who are the Pats?
Oh, Bonnie.
Didn't get a clear answer.
Bonnie.
So anyways.
I'm shocked. Okay. You're wonderful in so many ways.
But
it's
also
okay.
so many flaws.
Right. Well, just at least one.
Also never seen Star Wars.
Oh, Lord.
I'm glad we have that out.
Oh.
Now we're clear.
I'm reconsidering this interview. Okay, go ahead.
You're sad you brought me here. So, and I got a world religion degree at Chapman. So I learned a ton about all these different world religions, and I decided I needed to know more about my own.
Nice.
So I went on to seminary, and that was a great experience. It was a tough experience. As you know, I have a problem. I want to form convictions quickly and deeply. So you're in something for 9 weeks, and then you have to just move on.
Right.
And the teacher doesn't really care if you aren't ready. You just are moving on.
Right.
So it was a good practice for me to learn to live with not knowing all the answers.
Whoa.
That was good for me.
Yeah.
But I would say it wasn't until a few years ago when sort of everything that could have gone wrong went wrong that all of that stuff I had learned came into practice. So
nice.
At the time we're living in Orange, and what happened was a pipe broke under our house.
Okay.
And we didn't know this is what had happened until a few days later. So by the time they came to fix the pipe, it had leaked under our house, and then mold started growing up through the floor. So we got mold poisoning. We had no idea we had mold poisoning.
You just were sick a lot.
We're just sick. And we'd go to the doctor, and they check everything, and nothing's showing up.
Yeah.
So they sort of acted like I made it up.
Oh, man.
And finally, we kind of jumped ship, because around that same time, my mom got diagnosed with breast cancer.
Oh, man.
Which, by the way, 3 years cancer-free.
Come on.
She just had her last checkup. So
hey, I love
that's
that.
huge. Yeah.
But you didn't know that then.
I didn't know. We have no idea what it's going to be like. World's ending. So we said, we're out of here.
Yep.
We're going to go be by my mom. Mostly, I felt like she was going to be fine. But mostly, we're obviously sick people.
Yeah.
And we need help because we don't have family here. So we left. And we get to Colorado, and we're not sick anymore. And so we start piecing together different things. And we end up, my son starts having food allergies. And we end up going to a mold specialist. And they tell us, you've been poisoned by black mold. So we started on this trek of this 2-year journey to detox. Yeah. And so now we don't eat anything, basically.
Right.
But
hence 105 pounds.
Yeah, there you go. So we don't eat much, but when we do. But in that 2 years, and how the mold sort of surfaced is I got chronic inflammation. So I've been a runner forever. My intestines inflamed. Oh. They pushed up against my spine, and I got 2 herniated discs. It was super painful.
Oh my goodness.
They say a herniated disc will leave you like not moving for about a month if it's a 3 millimeter. Mine were 8 and 9.
Holy moly.
So they're huge. But they didn't know what caused it. We didn't know yet. That was why. Yep. And around the same time, I got pregnant with our second. And so I couldn't do much. Right. And they don't let you take anything. They give you Tylenol, which is basically like a cough drop for a herniated disc. So I was just in pain. So that happened in October until June, I was basically paralyzed. I could walk and kind of drag my leg, but that was it. And we were in a brand new city. Right. No friends. Right. We had my family, which was a saving grace. It was freezing, which I don't do very well. Happens. So I'm cooped up inside, and I can't move. And
you're in massive pain.
Massive pain. I literally didn't sleep through the night. 12 Advil, 2 Aleve a day. Didn't even touch it.
Oh,
it was
man.
terrible. And in the middle of that, I checked myself into the ER because I felt like something was wrong. And we found out that our second he had passed in the womb. So I ended up delivering him as a stillborn.
Oh, how far along were you?
Halfway. So we were 20 weeks. Oh. So you're just at the point where you have a choice. You can labor and deliver, or they can do some sort of operation, but it's not early on where your body sort of helps you pass it. So we spent 36 hours in labor, and we ended up delivering him, and we held him. And I'm grateful for the fact that we got a chance to parent him, even though he never met us, even though we met him, which was, it was one of those things. You look back and you go, I'm grateful that the presence of the Holy Spirit was there to give me discernment, because how am I supposed to make a decision in a time like this? I mean, you can't.
No. Seminary, an MAT didn't really help you with this.
No, I wasn't like, let me check back. I mean, you have a doctor standing there saying, we're so sorry. You have a choice to make. You can either deliver your baby or you can have a procedure done. And then after that, what do you want to do? Do you want to bury? Do you want to do a mass burial? Do you want to cremate? Do you want to... And we're looking at her like, I need a minute.
Right.
If you can leave and come back, that would be great. Yeah. And she's like, I can give you an hour.
Oh, my goodness.
So you have about an hour. And so we sort of just made choices that we said, in 5 years, we'll be glad we did this.
Okay. Even
if it's painful now.
Yeah.
So that's what we decided to do. And we did. And we ended up being able to hold him, and we met him and spent time, as much time as you can, with him. And then we chose to cremate him, and we spread his ashes up at Red Rocks in Colorado.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It was beautiful.
Yeah.
So, and then in that hospital visit too, they messed up my epidural. So I got a third herniated disc.
Oh, boy. Goodness.
So you leave the hospital and you're like, I can now move less than I could.
Yeah.
And I'm still in the same place I was.
Yep.
And now we don't have our second child with us. So it was quite the journey.
Oh,
and
my goodness.
Then that was in February. So 2 years ago, February. And so it sort of unfolded into these months of, what does this mean?
Right.
And like, honestly, what the hell happened?
Right.
Like, we were just living.
Swearing alert. I got yelled at for swearing. So you just, no, that's all right.
I sometimes
that's all right.
Always swear.
Yeah, okay. Good.
Sorry.
So swearing alert.
Swearing alert.
Yep.
But I feel like if there's one time you can swear,
it's then.
It's right then.
That's right. And so you're just recounting the swearing of then. I got it.
Yeah. But because the truth is I really grew up, and I don't know if I can pinpoint this, but with the knowledge of, if you do everything right,
yes,
everything right will happen to you.
Yes.
So I find myself deep in this hole in our family.
Yep.
And we have a 3-year-old at the time who is stacking up toys saying, I'm going to take these to the baby and teach him how to do it in heaven. And I'm looking around going, what did I do? Where did I go wrong? And so there was a deep sense of not only loss and grief and hurt and chronic pain and depression, but also shame.
Yeah.
Of
somehow you messed it up.
Somehow I messed it up. Somehow we took a wrong turn, and I screwed it up. And this is my punishment.
Yes.
So it's been quite the journey.
Yes.
And
Bonnie.
Yeah, we decided to move back here because we wanted to find counseling. We wanted to get my back healed, which it is a lot better now. I can walk around and move and do exercise like a normal person. But what's interesting about that is that took a lot of courage that I didn't know. The rhetoric that we got and what people told us was, you just have to keep pressing through. You just have to get up. You just have to do this, and you have to stay there, and you have to stay in Denver even though you're not comfortable. You shouldn't move back. That's quitting. And I just said, you know what?
Right.
The best
swearing
thing...
alert. I was going to give a swearing alert right there.
That was close. The best thing is that, like, I'm no longer going to define bravery and courage and strength by pressing on.
Yes.
I'm going to now define it by, what does it look like to have a healthy attitude, to have a healthy understanding of grief, and live in spite of that, and live with that. So that's sort of where we were when we moved back.
Oh my goodness. So many things. First of all, thank you for sharing that. I've walked with several people who've lost children, who've failed at infertility, who have given birth to children that weren't viable outside the womb. I mean, and they're. I don't know because I'm a man, but I can't imagine a more painful set of scenarios than losing a child as a mom, carrying that child and then losing that child, and not even knowing why exactly. Yeah. And so I think, Bonnie, there's so many things that I want to get at. One is the shame piece. Most of you guys know, if you've been listening to me, we've gone through a bit of hardship. Nothing like what you went through, but you can't compare. Hardship is still hardship,
no matter what. Yeah, absolutely.
And so we were through a string of just depression, anxiety, deaths in our family, 2 special needs kids, a diagnosis with Down syndrome, which was one of our special needs kids, and we've since helped when kids or when families give birth to kids with Down syndrome. We're kind of the go-to folks now. Yeah. And the question always is God punishing us? Yeah. Is always. God punishing us? What did we do wrong? And I think it speaks to the fact that we've embraced a kind of Christianity that isn't of Jesus, this causality, this formulaic sort of 3 steps to this or 4 principles for this. Yeah, absolutely. So speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, I think one thing that I had to learn was when people would always say to me, what did you learn about God in this? What did you learn? Right. And I finally was like, or what did you learn about yourself? And I finally was like, nothing. Right. Like, swearing alert, but I just learned that happens. Whoa. And that's fine. But that honestly, the only way this has changed my view about God is that now I understand that he comes alongside me in that. Yeah. But before that, I would totally agree. I think I really grew up in a culture and in a church culture that really said, if you don't attend church every Sunday, or if you aren't involved in these specific things, or if you don't read your Bible 30 minutes and it's like this weird formulaic thing, then you're doing it wrong. Right. And so I will say this, in my studies in seminary at Fuller, I loved all my spiritual formation classes. So we studied a lot of stuff about different ways to read scripture, or Christian meditation, or Lectio Divina, and solitude practices. And I really grabbed a hold of those and loved them. Yeah. I will say those were not accepted as regular practices and things that were, quote, good and holy to do. Right. So when I would do those things, because this is like how I learned to be still before God. Yep. And then all of this bad stuff happened. The line I always heard was, well...
You heard that from other people or in your head?
Both.
Really?
Yes. Sort of like, well... you were engaging in this. And so then for me, because I can spiral, I thought, of course it was because I, quote, did yoga last week. Or because I don't think that's absolutely false. Right. But it's scary to me that we really do live in a church culture that says you have to do this certain formula or it's not going to, quote, work.
And the thing that's so absurd is that Jesus so clearly speaks against such simplistic understandings, right? I mean, on multiple occasions, the Pharisaic equation was simple. If you had a deformity, your parents sinned or you sinned. Right. Simple. Yeah. and Jesus never played into that. In John 9, not once does he play into that. And yet, there's the Christian industrial shame complex. Yeah. Yes. So it's not enough that you're suffering. It's like Job's friends. You've got a whole crew around you saying, "Well, you actually kind of missed it, and you deserve it."
Well, and where, else. Like, have you looked inward? Oh, and I'm like, no, I haven't. I'm not going to. Right. And I know, and that was tough. So we had to learn to honestly ignore it. Right. And say, because if I believe that to be true, then the Jesus that I'm believing in that moment is not the same Jesus of the Bible. It's just not. That's right. So I had to decide to say, I'm either going to go against the grain here, against like what Christian culture is telling me, but believe that like the Jesus I know is the first responder. Right. He shed the first tear. Right. And he was there and he's in the trenches and he's sitting with me. Yep. Or, okay, you're right. I actually serve a God who's shaming me and who's laying all this on me so that I wake up.
Right. Right. And that's where, like lament, this is where we have such a thin understanding of lament and grief and loss and suffering. And my joke is always, we are kind of a card, casserole, and cliche culture. So something bad happens, and I'm a fan of casseroles, no question. So I would say
so good
casseroles.
Yummy.
You wouldn't even know. You don't even know. Don't even pretend like you'd have a casserole of kale.
You know what though?
So I don't even want to hear it. Secondly, we give cards, and I love cards, believe me. But it's the cliche bit that drives me nuts. And so I want to spend a bit of time recapturing a theology of lament. And one of the things that's been really helpful, and you'll recognize this typology, Brueggemann, a theologian named Walter Brueggemann, categorized the Psalms. Here's this incredible litany of emotion and protest and plea and celebration. And he organized them into 3 different types of psalms. And they don't all fit.
Right.
But I found this really helpful. The first kind of psalm he calls, it's a psalm of orientation. It's a psalm that reflects the ordered universe, God's control over the universe. It's a settled faith. Things are good. It's a sunny day. You're on the mountaintop.
Right.
And then he says there are psalms of disorientation. Disorientation psalms are the psalms that begin with, God, why are you so far away? Why have you not listened to me?
Yeah.
Why are you not taking action? And there are some brutal psalms that literally end with no red bow, no pretty velvet, good cliche. There's just nothing to them other than sorrow.
Exactly.
And they reflect not a settled faith, but a life that's been turned upside down, where the previous orientation is no longer sufficient to handle your experience.
Yep.
So here you go, you're raised in a Christian culture, you go to seminary, and then life does this, and you're upside down. And so the disorientation psalms, their purpose is to give voice in those moments when things have fallen apart and God has seemingly turned his back. And then he says the last section of Psalms are reorientation. Orientation, disorientation, reorientation. And here's the thing, and this is what I love about you, Bonnie. Reorientation is, again, the celebration of God's goodness and fidelity, but it's not going back to the old orientation.
To what you first, right.
Exactly. It's somebody who's traveled through disorientation, who has now taken suffering and pain and disappointment and grieving and loss and factored that in to their declarations of the goodness of God.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes.
Now, Brueggemann makes a brilliant point. Part of the reason why God allows disorientation is because it wars against the causalities that we so easily embrace as followers of God. In other words, if I pray for my kids, they'll turn out fine. If I abstain before sex, I'll have nothing but sex after marriage. It'll be awesome.
Right.
If I give money to God, he will provide for me financially. All of the formulas, you had yours, I had mine. We were all kind of inherited. It's a simplistic way of looking at faith. If I do A and B, then God does C.
Yeah.
Right. So disorientation, the gift, the ancients would call this the dark night of the soul. The gift of disorientation, if you can find a gift in it, one of the gifts, because there are many, but one of the gifts is it's actually destroying and dismantling the previously held algebraic formulas. Yeah. Right?
It really brings freedom.
If you can fight through to reorientation. The problem is that we have not equipped people to live in disorientation. We just try to rush them back to orientation.
Yeah.
So hence our cliches, right?
Yes.
Right? And the biggest cliche I've ever heard from people is it just must be God's plan.
This is the way it was supposed to turn out.
Right.
That child was always supposed to die.
Swearing alert, which is a bunch of horse. Okay?
It's absolutely true.
In the Bible, there are
awful.
3 things that are affirmed. Number 1, that God is good. Number 2, that evil is real and evil is evil. And number 3, that God will bring good out of evil, but is never the author of it. So I remember my dad was withering away from bladder cancer, and I'm watching him die. I'm watching my dad die. and some folks come in and they're so well-meaning and they look at him and they just say, well, it must be God's plan. And I'm like, no, God's plan was Genesis 1 and 2. God's plan is Revelation 21 and 22. This is not God's plan.
This is not a part of it.
How could Jesus, if this was all God's plan, then how can Jesus walk around saying, hey, when you pray that God's will would be done on earth as it is in heaven, if God's will were already being done on earth as it is in heaven? The supposition is it's not.
Right.
And when Jesus is engaging with demonic forces and disease and the powers and the principalities, I mean, he's not once is he saying, well, this is my Father's will.
Right.
Not once. Right. It would be contradictory to war against it if it was his Father's will.
Absolutely.
Oh, I get so fired up about that.
That's good to get fired up. Well, because what
that's
you
the
said,
shame.
It's the shame piece, because so every the other one you hear all the time is, well, everything happens for a reason.
Right.
You know, everything happens, and for a while I bought into that.
Can I interrupt you?
Yeah.
Because we get that from Romans 8.
Right.
Right. So Romans 8 is God will use. What is it? God. Romans 8:28. God will.
You gotta look it up.
Dang it! Bonnie, come on! I have that thing memorized. Evidently not. So I'm flipping through my Bible. All right, here we go. We know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who've been called according to His purpose.
Right. So time out. If you don't love Him,
right,
that's why He's not working for the good.
Right.
So obviously it doesn't matter. So now you haven't done the formula right.
Right.
But also God sees through it and you don't love Him enough.
Right. Because something good isn't happening.
Exactly.
But here's where we miss it, Bonnie. We miss it. First of all, it says that God works for the good. It doesn't say that everything is good.
Right. But do you ever hear that?
No. Never. No. And then secondly, He defines what the good is, namely that we would be conformed to the image of His Son.
Exactly.
So I import good to mean middle class, comfort, security, and convenience.
Yep.
Right? Prosperity and blessing. Mm-hmm. But the good here is the good of Christ-likeness.
Yeah.
Which I'm not as interested in.
Well, no. Not now.
Right, because who wants to learn love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, and self-control? Right? I'm all for love and joy and peace.
I can do those.
But the rest of those require suffering.
Yeah. Do.
And there's a difference. A buddy of mine had a great line. He said, I don't trust anybody until I can see where they limp.
Yeah.
And he gets that from Genesis, where Jacob wrestles with an angel. And as part of the wrestling with the angel, his hip is displaced. It's out of joint now, and he walks with a limp. That you only trust. His point is, you only trust people who've limped, who've wrestled, who are now walking with a limp.
Yeah.
Who've been through disorientation into reorientation.
Yeah.
Because that's where you're at. You can say, okay, 2 years ago, February, and there's still sadness.
Yeah.
It's not like you've moved on.
No, and that's the point that has been huge for me. What I want to make is that when we say everything happens for a reason, or this was God's plan, what's trying to happen there is someone saying, I want you to look at it, and then I want you to move on from that. And I want you to, quote, be yourself again.
Right.
I want you to stop being sad about it.
Yeah, moved back to orientation.
Move back to orientation. And the truth is what is a healthier, more biblical perspective is, we don't learn to overcome these things. We don't learn to get over it. We learn to carry them with us.
Yeah,
that's exactly what we need to do. We need to learn to carry that grief, sorrow, loss with us. I mean, there isn't a day. My son has made it normal that we have a baby in heaven. So he talks about that baby all the time.
Oh, sweet Chip.
He is. But he's been the best example of carrying it with us.
Yes.
He doesn't pretend that it didn't happen.
Yep.
Or he doesn't pretend like he's not sad. But he says, we're going to carry this. This is part of our story. Right. And we're carrying this with us.
See, and I think that's, if the Christian subculture or parts of it, shame, what that leads to is the fact that in Christianity, we're, especially in corporate expressions, we're called to pretend that we don't allow messiness. Churches are polished and they're clean and we're all nice, put together people, and no one's coming in blubbering and with snot running down their nose because they're grieving.
Right.
No one's coming in as an addict saying, man, I'm dying. I'm 20 hours sober. I need help. Right. We all got to get put together. And I think that's so nasty because we literally all face disappointment. We're all carrying disappointment right now. If you're in your car, if you're at the gym, if you're wherever, you carry disappointment with you. And you're given only three options. right? So our world says escape.
Yeah.
Or numb it, right? So medicate it through alcohol or drugs or sex or porn or food or whatever, or escape. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
Yeah.
The Christian option normally is pretend, because right, godly people aren't supposed to X, Y, and Z. Be disappointed with their marriages, or be disappointed with the amount of money they're making, or be disappointed they lost a kid,
or be disappointed, honestly, in God.
Right.
It's not okay to go, gosh, I'm mad about this.
Right.
And I feel like you weren't here. And you didn't come
and yet the Bible, there's a whole book called Lamentations.
Yeah.
If you've never read it, go read it.
Yeah.
Go read that. Go read Habakkuk, and then read the Psalms and see how much permission is given. Mm-hmm. And there's a difference between lament and complaining.
Yes.
And that's a huge deal, because complaining is complaining at God or about God. It's
against God's character.
Against God's character.
Right.
Lament is bringing your grief to God. Mm-hmm. And it's, God, why aren't you? It's almost, in the Bible, lament is an expression of covenant faithfulness.
Yeah.
Because, God, you're not keeping up your end of the bargain.
Right. This is how it feels, and I'm bringing this to you.
That's right.
In relationship. Mm-hmm.
And I absolutely love the permission we have to do that. But that permission isn't given in all sections of Christianity.
No.
And so you've got, on the one hand, you've got escape and numb. On the other hand, you've got pretend. Mm-hmm. And I think Jesus invites us to be alive and thirsty.
Yeah.
Like, stay thirsty, my friends.
Mm-hmm.
If Jesus were the Dos Equis man. There's a sense in which there's a sense in which Jesus says, keep on asking, keep on seeking, keep on knocking. Be alive. Let the disappointment lead you, keep you hungry, keep you thirsty, keep you not happy with the status quo and hungering for the things of the kingdom of God. But we don't know how to do that. And that's where the art of lament comes in. Mm-hmm. So I want to talk a little bit about lament because and Bonnie, you preached on this at EV Free, this incredible passage where Jesus in John 11, his friend Lazarus dies.
Yep.
He delays purposefully 4 days, because in Jewish belief, the spirit left in 4 days. 4 days we knew you were truly dead. You weren't coming back.
Right. Yeah.
So Jesus delays, shows up, and then why don't you fill in the rest of the details of the story?
Yeah. Well, I love in the Greek, if you can picture, so someone's telling the story. I don't have to, this, but someone's telling the story and they're talking quickly and probably in a village setting. So they're talking loud and fast. So they're going to get through the story as fast as they can so everyone can hear everything and then ask questions or whatever later. So normally they have, in the middle of the story, it says Jesus wept. He goes and finds Lazarus and it says Jesus wept.
My favorite memory verse ever.
Yeah.
I can remember that one. Romans 8:28, I got nothing, but Jesus wept. I got
you're
it. On it.
And I love that because that seems for us like that's a weird place to put punctuation. In the original Greek, the punctuation's there. And when that happens, my good friend David, who's amazing, has a church down, I'll put it on my Facebook, but he has a church down in San Clemente that's awesome, or in San Juan Capistrano. But he's also, he does a bunch of stuff with literature and rhetoric. He has his PhD. And he was telling me, he said, what happens here is that when you see a punctuation like that, it's put because they want you to pause. So he's saying all this stuff in the market super fast, super loud, and he says, and then Jesus wept, period. And he stops talking. So then there would have been silence.
As they're repeating the story.
Yeah. And the point that they do this, why they do that is because they have to repeat a story in such a way that gives the emotion and actually what happened. And so the idea is that Jesus weeps and he pauses. There's a break. There's a literal break in the story, and he takes time and space there. And then he goes back and he ends up raising Lazarus from the dead. And you and I know he knew that was going to happen, but he still takes time in the middle.
That's right.
To pause. And he does that. I love that because he pauses and takes time to grieve and to lament, even in the face of a resurrection right around the corner.
That's huge. That is huge. Knowing the end of the story is not incompatible with grieving in the midst of it.
In the middle of it. Exactly.
Right? It's not contradictory. That's huge.
People often say, well, you know that you'll meet your baby in heaven. So you don't have to grieve now. And I want to say, no. These aren't black and white. And it's totally, and the other thing I always got was, why, I was really struggling with depression, and it was, so you've totally fallen away from Christ.
Oh,
I want to make it clear
I got that
that you can be depressed, you can be anxious, you can be struggling, you can be grieving, and still totally and completely believe in God.
Come on. I know.
These aren't black and white issues.
Right.
And that's what Jesus does.
Yeah.
He says, I know he's going to come back to life, but I'm taking space and time to grieve and lament here.
Yep. Holy cow. All right. Well, Bonnie, I want to do this. I want to hit pause here, and then I want to do a part 2.
Great.
And so here's the deal. There's so much good stuff that we've yet to explore. Bonnie is just a dear friend. I believe so much in her ministry. She is starting a podcast, correct?
Yep.
And it is called
Find the Blue.
Find the Blue, BLUE.
Yep.
And that's also going to be a website.
Yep. It'll be up this week.
This week.
By the end of the week, yeah.
And also you're on Facebook.
Yeah.
And
just
so,
Find the Blue.
So Find the Blue. Tell us just a little bit about what you hope to do and what you're talking about through that.
Yeah. So
because podcasting, as you know, it's the next big thing.
It is.
Here we are.
We're already in the middle of it.
Yes.
I've always said you were ahead of the game.
Yeah, always.
Which I want everyone to know, Mike's not, first time maybe I've ever seen him not in black and khaki.
That's right.
Navy blue and black.
I'm a house husband. So,
you're
lucky. You're lucky I wore any. Well, no, I shouldn't say that. No. Yes,
but
I did.
You don't have to dress up in your uniform.
No uniform today.
No. So Find the Blue. My therapist is amazing. And one of the things she says is we live on this sort of life trajectory of picture an infinity symbol. Half of it's blue, half of it's red. The red would be the hard stuff. The blue's the good stuff. She's like, our problem is that we think we should always be in the blue.
Right.
And when we're not, all we want to do is get back to the blue. But the real point, and this is what we're going to be talking about and writing about, is that we are often in the red. Our job isn't to get back to blue, back to orientation.
Right.
Our job instead is to find areas of strength, of reorientation, of blue that can help us carry the red with grace and courage.
I love that.
So yeah.
So it's not one or the other, and that's the huge thing.
It's not one or the other.
Either life is falling apart or it's amazing, and what you realize it's both.
It's both,
at
and
the same
you're
time.
constantly ebbing and flowing.
That's right.
And picking up pieces and taking it with you.
That's right. Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
All right, so Voxers, just literally so excited, so humbled to be a part of your journey. This whole experience has been beyond anything I would have ever imagined.
You've got a great tribe.
It is. Oh my goodness! And the questions we're getting, and man, I don't even know what to do with them all. But so thank you for being engaged, and thank you for wanting to engage around these issues. So you can like us on Facebook. You can follow us on Twitter at Mike Erre. Mikeerre. Thank you for those of you that like and subscribe to the podcast and leave feedback. That is super helpful. Pray for the person that left 1 star. I want that person
There's
to come
always
to Jesus.
one.
Always one. So let me bless you with the blessing that God gave the priests to say over the people is the one I say over my children often. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord shine his face upon you, be gracious to you. May the Lord lift up his countenance to you and give you peace. Amen and amen. Until next time, thanks.
Thanks for listening to Vox, the Mike Erre podcast. Be sure to like Mike on Facebook at facebook.com/official Mike Erre. Follow Mike on Twitter and Periscope at Mike Erre for live interaction and ongoing Q&A. Don't forget to visit subversivekingdom.com for further engagement and information about Mike.